Archaeodeath, walking in the footsteps of past funerals.
Welcome, Archaeodeathlings, to my 18,000 follower celebratory Q&A. Now, we're in a situation where I have got 18,000 followers. I have never seen 18,000 people. I don't know what they look like. I don't know what that means in real terms, but it's a wonderful situation to be in because it gives my academic expertise a platform, and it means that amidst the many, should we say, less than qualified commentators on TikTok, at least there is a few of us academics adding to the mix and contributing. So welcome. I'm here to answer any of your questions about the archaeology and heritage of death and memory in particular. But anything else that you have in mind, anything else I've been commenting on my recent videos. I try and push out about 2-3 videos a day on ancient monuments, sites and landscapes I've visited, so do check those out. Also, I talk about various debates related to my ongoing research and my teaching as a university professor. And also I do this so that it links to my YouTube channel. You can follow Archaeodeath on YouTube, and you can follow my WordPress blog, where there's a link from my bio, which I've been running from about 2013. So 9 years. Or was this the 10th year? I think this is the 10th year. Or no, 9 years of blogging. I've pushed out about 1,700 blog posts on various subjects, and I've been reminded or encouraged to finish one blog post I've got coming up, because I realised that of all the things I haven't talked about on TikTok, I haven't joined all the archaeologists who commented on Indiana Jones films, given that the 5th film is slated for next year, I believe, in 2023. So I've got a blog post coming up about Indiana Jones and my Archaeodeath rating of the films. Obviously, it's fiction and it's fantasy, and it's a very obviously more about spiritualism and adventure than it is about archaeology. But there's still some interesting Archaeodeath elements to each of the films that have been produced and released so far. And so I'm going to give my little review of them. I'm going to rate them, because you have to rate films. I don't know what it matters, but I'm going to rate the films. And you'll be shocked and surprised by my ratings, as opposed to the standard ratings of them according to other criteria. So look out for that one. So how long have I been doing this, my friend? Well, I've been on TikTok since May 2020. So I'm a 2-yearer. I'm 2 years and 4 months. I've only been going live to celebrate every 1,000 followers, and I've joined a few occasional random lives when I happen to be available. I'm talking about issues about colonization, anti-racism and other such important matters, but mainly I'm just doing lives about my area of academic expertise on archaeology. And and so I've been doing this 2 years 4 months, 2 years 4 months, and most videos go nowhere with me. I don't get, then suddenly something blows up rather randomly, and those videos that do go very popular don't necessarily reflect my expertise or everything I do, but it's great to get the people sort of latch onto that and see that as a way in. And so I hope that's been of use. So I'm going to stay around and do this. It's really addictive and fun, but it's also, I enjoy actually the creation of the videos, selecting audio, selecting sites. I've got a host of videos coming up that I'm going to be doing. I've just reached my 10th Archaeology of the Mandalorian series post. So I've got 1 to 10 in a playlist now. And so here's little Grogu, just to remind you of the Mandalorian. He's looking for something spherical to eat, something ovoid to consume. But all I've got is my Archaeodeath mug with my Archaeodeath Krabby cider. And he's not allowed that, are you, Grogu? You're too young. You're only 50. He's older than me, just. Anyway, where was I going? So I've got the Archaeology of the Mandalorian episodes 1 to 10. I've got another 5, 6 to do, so you get more of those. I've got more of my visit to Hadrian's Wall and sites up in northern England, close to the Scottish border on the west, less close in the middle and the east. So I'm going to do more of that. And I've got lots of plans for doing sort of pushing out debates and other ideas. I'm not going to be dropping any outrageously rage farming controversial statements. I always try to responsibly clarify and provide sources to back up about the sites and monuments and ideas that I use. And I'm happy to receive criticisms and comments when I get it wrong, or at least where I can do something about when I get it wrong. When it's just like, you didn't convince me, there's not much I can do. But when you actually have questions that push me and say, well, I'm not sure, what about this? I'm more than happy to hear those criticisms and comments. But it's it seems to be going quite well. I'm getting a lot of good feedback. But as I said, most videos don't go anywhere, but that's true of TikTok. Hello, Johnny Prince Charlie, lovely to see you, and good to see some of the others. Yes, Hadrian's Wall is amazing. And do you know what? Hadrian's Wall is one of those sites where, well, it's a whole landscape really of both the Roman frontier zone itself and then the subsequent afterlife of that landscape up to the present day. It's a landscape I feel I know very well, and it was this summer after the lockdown I thought I need to revisit, because it's been about 16 years since I've been up there, but it feels like yesterday because I grew up at some of the first archaeological sites I remember going to with my parents, or at least with my dad, was to Hadrian's Wall, to Bird Oswald and Housesteads, and so I decided to go back and spent 3 pretty hectic days zooming around, running around, doing silly TikToks, but also looking at sites and looking at monuments and looking at bits of the wall. Yeah, and I did a TikTok about the fact that I was only asked once about a modern dry stone wall by an international tourist. Is this Hadrian's Wall? And I did, obviously I laughed a bit inside, but then I thought, actually, it's not obvious unless you know. And then if you haven't got to it yet, and she was walking uphill, how would she know what Hadrian's Wall looks like? And then I made a point that, actually a lot of the way Hadrian's Wall looks like today is contrived, constructed, and many of the sections it's lost. And it has been reconstructed into modern dry stone walls. So it's not their fault really when visitors don't quite get it. And then, of course, I've made other videos about the fact that Hadrian's Wall isn't really just a wall. It's a wall. It's a ditch to its north. It's a Roman military way to the south. It's forts and fortlets, mile castles and turrets. It's the vallum behind, a big double bank and ditch in between. It's a whole, and then the Staingate Road. So it's a whole complex landscape of different features. So yeah, I've got more to come on Hadrian's Wall, including mortuary elements, Roman tombstones, other stuff like that to show you. The archaeology of fiction, so The Mandalorian, Indiana Jones. So hopefully a bit of mix of archaeology in fiction and pop culture, and archaeology in the real landscape, shall we say. So, and and I do stick on the Anglo-Saxons and Vikings, but I will, you can't but, when I visit museums and other sites, talk about prehistoric monuments, more recent historic monuments and sites. And so I'll keep a sort of a mix. I'm not too purist in my content. I'll dabble outside of my content area. And if any of you, of course, have any questions for me, you go somewhere and you want to do your own video and say, I wonder what Howard thinks about that. Well, I've done a few of those. You can always sort of demand a report, and I'll try my best. I don't know everything, but it's been funny how some places I did a couple for a Spiritual School of Ox, and I happen to have 2 videos I could do about the very spot where she was visiting, or a few roads away from where she was visiting. So it's amazing, there's many parts of this, of the world and Europe and Britain that I haven't been to, but it's really weird sometimes how I sometimes can sort of coincide. And I've been following Professor Maxwell Paul on Hadrian's Wall, and I'm going to do some more stitches with him and disagree and agree with some of his takes on various sites when he was walking Hadrian's Wall this summer. And so I've got a few more on that, and I'm going to do a few more on Vikings, dispelling popular myths, and then dispelling the dispelling of popular myths. So the people that are saying things are popular myths, I've got a few videos coming out which will say, actually, it's not complete fantasy. There is some evidence for X or Y. So that will cause some controversy, because the Vikings seem to be triggering everyone, gets people a bit hot under the collar, hot under the male armour or whatever. Everyone likes Vikings, but also has an opinion on them. What's on my t-shirt? Well, this is a bit of a Viking vibe. So this is a mask, a face mask that's from a 10th century runestone from Jutland in Denmark. I can't remember the exact site off the top of my head. It's one of only a handful of late Viking age runestones that have these face masks, and everyone says, oh, it's the face of the devil, or it's the face of Loki. And we don't know, really. but they're pretty scary. And this is on a T-shirt I bought at the Morscourt Museum in Aarhus about a decade ago. I went there twice for two different reasons. To Aarhus, I went there. I think it was 2010 to a conference, and where I was a keynote. I was a guest of honour. I was one of three guests of honour. A very lovely young lady who's now a very eminent academic of her own right, called Professor Mariana Hem Eriksson at the University of Leicester. She was another keynote, and the greatest hobbit of them all, the Dr. John Robb of the University of Cambridge, a very lovely American guy with very hobbit-like hair and beard. He was also another keynote, and we basically had a bunch of postgraduate students from all over, from Russia, from Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark. Sort of it was a pan-Scandinavian and around surrounding areas. Postgraduate students come together for a conference, and we were the keynotes. And I bought the T-shirt then, I think. And then they've rehashed the Morscourt Museum, and I haven't seen it in its new form. But I have. I did go back there to do a doctoral examination, so I was one of the external examiners for a Danish doctoral examination there. And they had two academics come to examine the PhD student there. So I went back, and I think it was 2012, 2013, something like that. And that was fun because, or was it the other way round? Was that in 2010 and then I went back for the conference? Who knows? Time is but an illusion. But the point is, I went there twice, and that one was really fun because I had to do Danish PhD examinations are public. So all the family, friends, other PhD students and faculty are all in a massive room, and we grill this student for a couple of hours. And he does a presentation, I did a presentation, the other examiner did a presentation, the internal examiner did a presentation, then we went away and evaluated whether we'd give him a PhD. We decided we would. But I added a bit of tension to it, because apparently, of course, it's all formal and old-fashioned, and the idea is that you're supposed to play a game that it's all very formal, you're all wearing suits and tuxedos and stuff and all this shit, but really you're supposed to give a nod and a wink so that it's all going to be okay. But I thought, well, you set us up in this old-fashioned way. I'm not giving you a nod and a wink. I made them suffer. I made them. Apparently, all the family were bricking themselves that I was going to fail him, because I was doing lots of head shakes and, oh no, I don't agree with this, and stuff like that. So I left people at the edges of their seat to the very end, and then I gave a benevolent smile. You see, I can be a bit of a shit. You see, at times, I look lovely, but I'm not. I'm evil. I'm evil, really. No, but seriously, it's fun to do these doctoral examinations. I've done one in Finland and Denmark, and I do a lot in the UK. In the UK, they're private, though. They're that you don't do a public humiliation. So that was a ramble from what's on my T-shirt. And what's on my T-shirt is an image that's sold in a museum shop on a T-shirt, but it comes from a 10th century runestone. And a lot of people say, oh, it's the image of what Loki looks like, but we have no clue. Most people say it's a protective symbol, an apotropaic symbol, which is the other backup. Yay! Oh, someone who's having a Viver. Oh, I wouldn't be nasty to anyone who's having a Viver, I assure you. But it was a bit. It was just when I exaggerate. What I did was basically, there's a moment when we're supposed to go away and deliberate, and then we come back, and I did a deliberate sort of looking serious, and I went, and you've passed, sort of type moment. So I couldn't resist. You can't give people like me too much power. Academics are good to have some expertise and knowledge, but never give us power. Apart from Mark Drakeford, very few of us make actually competent politicians. We should never be given a red button to press, because we'll press it just to see what happens, and that's something to warn you about. A rule for life. Listen to academics, but don't necessarily believe everything they say, and certainly don't give them power. But that was just my little moment of madness, and it was all fun, and it was all part of it. It all panned out. He was a very bright lad, too cocky by half, if you want my opinion. He did take him down a peg or two. No, he did a brilliant thesis, but it was very, very clever, and he's a very, very well established academic now. So if he ever sees this, which is unlikely, I don't mind. He'll know what I mean. We had a good booze up anyway afterwards. They fed me food. I got chips at some point, which is, what it's all about. So anyway, so that's my rambling so far. My next question to answer is from Johnny Prince Charlie. What is your opinion of Time Team back in the day? Right, Time Team, for those who didn't know, I don't even know when it ran from and to. It was 20 years, wasn't it? 20 seasons, mid-90s to 2015, something like that. I don't know. Can't remember. But anyway, Time Team was a phenomenon. and it ran for about 20 years, and it had a team of very charismatic archaeologists, very competent archaeologists, but the formula was both a blessing and a curse, because the formula was, in 3 days, or was it 2 days, 3 days, I think it was, we're going to investigate a site, which is just nonsense. And apparently the TV folks felt that's what was needed, that sense of urgency. Hey, Time Team Eyes came running. And that sense of urgency was required. But the fact is, what it meant is every program was a botch. And you could see it was a botch. And, you know, it was almost like, it was painful to watch. And sometimes it was good. It was good TV. So, and it did us a massive service in terms of popularising the discipline. And I think Tony Robinson was a brilliant presenter and mediator between the public and the archaeological team. Some of the individual archaeologists became celebrities in their own right. You either love them or hate them. You know, everyone had little teams. Like, this is before, you know, Twilight and Team Edward and Team whatever the other guy was. You know, but there were sort of people who liked the Stuart Ainsworth and the Mick Aston and you know, so, and the Carenza and so on. And you got to know the personalities of the individuals. And I thought all of that was incredibly positive for the discipline, for understanding the process, the range of methods we use, the range of sites we investigate. But the 3-day drama theatre rapidly became tired. In fact, it was probably tired in the first season. And I thought, come on, they're going to revise this. There's no reason it had to be done in 3 days. And it was quite clear from behind the scenes reports that they were getting whole extra teams of volunteers and field workers in to do the shit behind the scenes so that there was something to see. You know, there wasn't just the one guy in the trench or the one gal, "They're going over to Joe's trench. Joe, what's happened here?" Well, Tony, you know that there's been sort of 17 people on that trench doing the work for a couple of hours before the cameras rock up. So I felt that theatre was deeply contrived early on, and they didn't change it. And that's what I found really frustrating. And despite the fact that knowledge grew, the public's expectation of knowledge grew, and they kept returning it to the same formula, was very typical of a TV programme. Like, if you've seen, I don't know, one series of a modern drama, you expect it to evolve, right? But it was very much stuck in a much more older TV format, where it doesn't matter how many episodes we've seen of these three comedy characters walking around the Yorkshire Dales, or it doesn't matter how many series we've seen of Antique Roadshow, each episode has to be back to basics. And I felt that was an insult to the audience that grew and the fans that grew around it, because I felt, people could have been taken on a journey, so that by season 15 or 20, when you've got basically a generation of TV goers who watch this stuff, you could cut to the chase. You could have online resources and other materials that could back up to fill people in. And I don't think they ever really, I think they ran out because I think they never evolved. And there was a lot of controversy. They made I think it was an excellent presenter, Marianne Ocketa, who is now a presenter on many TV programs, and she's authored books. They put her in, when Mick went, they put her in a season, and that got massive backlash. Young female presenting on Time Team, and I thought she was bloody excellent and a breath of fresh air, but it riled people up as these things do. And so I thought that was very sad, because I had an opportunity to not just give a new presenter, but to change other things about the formula and the dynamic. And I don't think they did it. So I love Time Team in some ways. I was frustrated from the very start by other aspects of its formula, but it was a winner for its time. And to be candid, it gave me a job, because I would say that the expansion of archaeology as an undergraduate subject at UK universities, we're never going to wait for the historians or the geographers or the anthropologists to make room for us. We're never going to wait for the government to actually encourage and support and fund A-level archaeology. The discipline was dying on its arse, and it really gave a massive boost to the subject at a time when it really needed it. And we miss that now. So there's lots of things I love about Time Team. There's lots of things I absolutely detest about Time Team as an academic, but I would never dismiss it or deny its value, both in the UK and worldwide. And of course, I did know some of them. I do know some of them. So just so you know, so I can name check a few people I knew. Before, obviously, the late Professor Mick Aston of Bristol University, I met him a number of times, and we got on because I didn't try to suck up to him. Because he was such a down-to-earth chap. He was. he had a bit of arrogance about him, but then he's a TV celeb. So, but he was genuinely wanted to hear what I was doing and what my research was about, and to have a chat about things we were interested in, rather than doing this, well, when I was on TV, of course, oh, darling, pass me this. He's really, no, and it really pissed off some of my colleagues of the time, who really thought, treated him did this whole royal, red carpet out for him when he visited our department, and really sucked his, basically, it was just cringeworthy, So I didn't do that, and we had a good old chat and a couple of times, and so I like Mick Aston. He was good news, and I went to his memorial event as well. And I would also say our visiting professor at Chester is Stuart Ainsworth. So he's retired, he lives in Chester, and he's a visiting professor in our department. So I know Stuart Ainsworth too. And I knew a few of the other celebrities who come on. I know Carenza Lewis, obviously she's a professor of archaeology now at University of Lincoln. And so I know some of the characters. Tony Robinson got an honorary degree from my university, and they didn't even invite me to meet him. But he did really good speech slamming the neoliberal higher education system. So Tony did a good bit, actually. So well done to Tony for that. Okay, so that's my view on Time Team. Brilliant, helpful, excellent, but incredibly annoying at the same time, for me. What's my opinion of Mary Beard? Wow, this is getting personal, isn't it? So what's my opinion of Mary Beard? Do you know, I've had Mary Beard, I'm not a classicist. She goes into late antiquity, and she does sort of overlapping periods that I do. But I must admit, I don't spend a lot of my time on the media, the mainstream media, or TV. I don't watch a lot of TV. So Mary Beard's a bit of a non-event for me. I don't mean that in a bad way. From everything I've seen of her, she's a very forthright and clear and excellent public communicator, who gets a massive load because of her gender and age, and for a whole loads of reasons, gets a load of stick from a host of different directions. She's demanded to speak on almost every issue, like some of our celebrity TikTokers are. Everyone's has to, they demand, what has Mary Beard said on this match? Mary Beard says this. So I think she has become a celebrity for classics, for archaeology as too, but she seems very good. I think I've had a couple of Twitter interactions with her that have always been positive, but I don't, I must admit, I confess, I don't scrutinise everything she says and does, and I don't know a massive deal about her. From an academic writing, I haven't had time to do a lot of reading on this type of thing she talks about, so she's a bit outside of my area, but she seems lovely, and a lot of it is expected of her, and I saw her come a crop of various social media storms for not being opinionated enough, or being too opinionated on various issues. And of course I talk about her in class when I talk about how many black people were in Roman Britain type debates, and there was that massive storm that horrible little weasel kicked off, being outraged at the BBC having people of colour in there. I can't remember, he was one of these sort of YouTubers, Mark something, always called Mark something. Anyway, he caused a storm, didn't he? And Mary Beard waded in and said, actually, we have quite a lot of evidence now. And that caused a massive storm. And I waded in on, I did a blog post about that issue and talked about how our problem is we can never visualise exactly how people looked and how they were then, those complexions would have been perceived. And the problem with artist reconstructions is that they demand we fix a complexion and a morphology of face that fits into various aspirations and ideas of race in our time onto the Roman period, into the early Middle Ages, and that causes all manner of problems. So I actually did a blog post reflecting on a mate of mine, Aaron Watson, who did the famous iconic artist reconstruction for the museum in York of the Ivory Bangle Lady. And I talked about how his art, brilliant as it is, fixes a complexion and therefore a public conversation, and that is both constructive and pernicious. It's not his fault, but art has that problem. It fixes a complexion. The BBC cartoons had the same issue. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying it fixes a conversation in a particular way, and our obsession with appearance and complexion, rather than the obvious evidential basis we do have for people from all over the Roman Empire and beyond being in Britain, because that's what all our evidence tells us. And that's what so annoys these very thinly veiled but overt, race-obsessed right-wingers who are just looking for something to have a go at. So Mary got real trouble for that, and there was no trouble. She didn't do anything wrong, and she was just speaking facts and evidence that we have, but it caused a massive storm. So in those kind of circumstances, I've talked with my students about that, and I've talked about Mary Beard, and in that regard, I think she's a force for good on many different topics, but I can't say I've kept up with every controversy she's been involved in. We are dealing with a world where people are emphatic about their view of the landscape and what the story is, and often we can be benign about it and we can smile and say, I don't think that's exactly something we have evidence for. And sometimes we have to call it in and call it out and say, hang on, that's bullshit. And the problem is knowing when to do it, isn't it? And in the middle of a TV program, when he's claimed to have a site, you have to. There's no way out of it. This is bogus. We have to expose it. In other cases, when I'm skipping through TikTok and I see a video that's spouting misinformation, I can't respond to every video. I can't say, well, and sometimes as a great phrase of a certain other creator, I agree with the rhetoric of this creator, however their evidence isn't there. And I've seen that. I could say a lot about almost every creator who does some post about the Vikings. I could make that point. Even people I really sympathise with and I respect their views, they sometimes come out with things that I go, I'm not sure about that one. Hence, I'm going to do a few myth busting, but also querying myth busting, because some people are saying, there's no evidence for this. Actually, that's not too outrageous. So I shall get on to that. Someone asked about what's the meaning behind my my username. Where's that question? My Archaeodeath. Yeah, so I think I talked about this in a previous line, but I'll do a quick summary of what it is. So there's a long-running YouTuber and public archaeologist called Mark Barkman-Astles who runs Archaeo Soup. And there's a long-running joke of mine also that you can put archaeo as a sort of prefix in front of anything and make it sound rather cool and interesting and about archaeology. So, and archaeologists do this a lot as a sort of in-joke. Well, at least I do. Maybe I just imagined anyone else does. And so I thought, because of those things mashed up, I thought Archaeodeath from my WordPress blog in 2013. It sounds a bit gothic and metal, but it's not really. It's just a sort of capsulating themes. A range of themes, because I do the archaeology of death. That's what I focus on, and that's what my interests are. But it's really interesting that no one's actually asked me about my cup here, but this is actually an Archaeodeath cup in some way, because it is just a cheesy souvenir bought in a biker's cafe shop on the Ponderosa Cafe near Llangollen. And one of my students bought it for me, because I always take them there for field trips so we could see, because there's, for good reasons, as well as they do good chips and various other things. There's a little shop there, a little shop in the clouds, and they've got this really cheesy goblet section. But I didn't expect the students to, I'd always take them and say, there's a loos and there's the shop if you want it. And one of the American MA students, who does my MA Archaeology of Death and Memory, came back out of the shop and said, we got this for you, Howard. And I went, oh my God, oh, thank you. And I thought, well, so it's not the type of thing I'd normally buy for myself, but it's a gift from a student. And I'm very pleased and touched that they bought me a skull-covered goblet. It's hyper cheesy in my opinion, but it does a job, and it looks rather creepy. And so, I thought this is my first time I've ever wheeled it out on TikTok, actually. So I think it is. So I thought that would be a good thing to do. So cheers. Well, in fact, I'm glad you like the username, because it does work, doesn't it? As a sort of encapsulates the mortuary archaeology, how we study mortality, attitudes to the afterlife, and disposal methods of the dead, commemoration practices. Archaeodeath. Death is everything from the dying process, diseases, memorials, everything. So it's all rather fabulous. I'm good, thank you, Fable. In fact, Fable and I are going to do another TikTok live in 6 days' time about Vikings. I've done a kind of chat show question for the live, and we're going to. I think, what do we call it? Something like, "Am I a Viking?" It sounds like it's a daytime TV question time. Sort of, we've got a guy on who thinks he's a Viking. No, but we're going to seriously talk about issues of identity politics and Viking identity, beyond faith, but also looking at the various different ways in which people are fine with the Vikings and why that can sometimes be problematic, but it can also be really constructive and nice. But yeah, so no single archaeological site that's my favourite, but I have a craving to revisit northeast Scotland and to see some of the sites that I saw only some of when I was excavating in the 90s with Professor Richard Bradley. Anyone knows Professor Richard Bradley, he's a phenomenon in archaeology in himself. And my claim to fame is that I found a Clava cairn with him that we didn't know was there doing geophysics. And I'm renowned as the only person who could eat more cake than Richard. In fact, there was a moment. It was like a sort of a you know the scene from Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark where Marion Ravenwood outdrinks the Tibetan guy or whatever, and it was like that with cake, and Richard was going, but you can't eat another cake, in this look of disbelief. And I said, well, it's only lunchtime, Richard. We've got another, we're going field walking. We're doing a field survey, So I said, I could have a couple of more cakes, but. The news. It's really funny. Yeah, Johnny, I just on a TikTok you should check out about the effect of heat on archaeology. I know my aerial reconnaissance buds, such as Toby Driver at the Royal Commission in Wales, have been literally in the air all over the last couple of weeks, looking at parch marks, finding new sites. Disappointed they can't find more of sites they thought they'd be able to see. But that's the challenge of aerial photography, using parch marks when it's particularly dry to pick up differentiations in the crops growing and the grass growing, and you can reveal literally the footprints of buildings emerge out of the soil from the air. So we're seeing more of that going on, and this heat it'll probably be a big news in the autumn when we've evaluated and analysed all of this. And we suddenly see a lot more, evidence. But at the moment, I can imagine it's going to be very exciting to see, what comes out of this summer. And again, this is the point I made in my TikTok. Climate change and a drought is bad news for farmers. It's a bad news for people who want to use their hose pipes, or people who just want access to water. And now some parts of Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire are just running out. It's no good. It's no good for anyone. I'm not trying to make light of it. And it's no good for archaeology too, because the drying conditions is destroying wetlands. It's destroying, we've seen, global rising temperatures is eroding glaciers and permafrost. All of that is a bad thing, but on the good side, it's revealing amazing archaeology at the same time. As long as we have the resources to actually investigate it, which is the problem. This is why you need archaeology to have this this good long-term support of expertise, because when the crisis moments hit, or when you have a moment or an opportunity to investigate, a metal detectorist has found an object, but it's part of a broader archaeological site that's now exposed about and known about and needs to be investigated. We need that backup expertise to actually investigate. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting. I've done TikToks about climate change in archaeology, and I think that's an interesting area. We're going to see exciting new finds, but I'm afraid it's exciting, but with that chill in your, that this is only happening. We're only getting this stuff because of the damage we're doing to the planet. So it's kind of a chicken and egg. Is it chicken and egg? Two-faced. It's either Janus faced or a chicken and egg. They're my two go-to metaphors that never work. For what I'm talking about. If there's no other questions, I might wrap this up and say thank you very much. But going back to my original starting point, and Grogu wants to leave his thanks too. Thank you for all the follows. Thank you for all the conversations. Keep dropping me questions and engaging, because that's what archaeology is all about, and it's good fun. So with that in mind, I hope you sign up for my live with Fable on Friday next week, where we're going to talk Vikings. Am I a Viking? Well, I'm not, but I mean, what's it all about? Because I've got a couple of research papers coming out about Viking public archaeology. What is the significance of the Vikings today, and how it works through, and what it means, and what does it mean? What does any of it mean? And I shall say farewell for now. Until my 19,000 live. When will that be? You never know. I'm at just over 18,300, so it might not be that long away. It's good to be quick live. Yes, I mean, yeah, I mean, I've answered all the questions, and that's what it's all about. And thank you to Spiritual Squirrel Vox for being my moderator. Thank you, brilliant work. No silliness, lots of good questions, and all went well. So you're a top moderator. Take care, all, and thank you very much.
If you've enjoyed this Archaeodeath video, why not check out the Archaeodeath blog at howardwilliamsblog.wordpress.com.